Let's see if
You're
we
out.
can help parents solve the parenting puzzles together.
So welcome everybody to the first edition. This is our first shot at this as the parenting puzzle podcast with Dr. Daniela Owen. So I'll start off just real quick. Why I wanted to do a podcast is because one, you don't get the opportunity too often to have like a superstar in your presence in her field. So that's the first thing. And for me, I'm a simple struggling parent with the keyword struggling. So when I think about the resources that are out there for parents like me and like everyone else out there, it's a little hard to find resources that you trust. So what we really want to do with this forum is to provide some good resources for the questions that you have that daily that parents struggle with, that I struggle with. I'm sure Dr. Daniela struggles with as well. So I'm the parent that needs a lot of help, and we're able to offer the insight of somebody that's been doing this for a very long time, accomplished author, content creator, a professional in her field. So, Dr. Daniel, I'll turn it over to you. How about you introduce yourself? Tell us, what motivated you to get into this field of helping parents and helping their children with how they cope with their emotions and things like that. So I'll turn it over to you since, man, obviously you're the star here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Jake. So, yes, I am Dr. Daniela Owen. I have always really been interested in psychology. I studied it undergrad and realized it was a passion of mine. I started doing infancy research and realized I was more interested in the parent-child interactions in the waiting room than actually in the research room, which led me down the path to doing clinical, realizing that I was going to want to, into doing therapy with families. Uh, Not to knock infancy research, it's fascinating and extremely important. But I was kind of drawn towards being able to do those interventions and to really work on helping families recognize when something isn't working. How do we right that wrong? How do we course correct that ship? And realizing that we do have a lot of good research in the area of parenting, and exactly what you were kind of explaining or alluding to before. It's that translation between this really good research that tells us in those hard moments, in those tricky situations, what does work most of the time. Nothing works 100%, but what does work most of the time, or what are the things that don't work or create a bigger problem? We actually have good answers to these questions, but to your point that most parents don't ever get access to these answers. So I was drawn to this field and trying to kind of be that bridge between what we know is helpful and how do we help families work as well as they can together and actually thrive and get that information to the families who can actually then use it, manage challenges and problems, and get to a place of overall just functioning better as a family and having a better time doing it. So that's sort of been my path.
Yeah, I love it. So you're seeing people have challenges in the waiting room. You're like, that's where I want to help.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
where I want to help. That situation right there. I love that
Yeah.
because sometimes as a parent, and I'm sure I'm not alone here, like you going through the day to day, and it almost feels like you're surviving. You're not really thriving. You're just kind of making it through each day. There's no playbook for parenting. Like there's none. I wish there was like some book that can come down from the sky and be like, okay, here's the answers to all your questions, Jake. You got a million of them. But there's not. And there's no, and we're gonna make mistakes as parents, obviously. I guess one thing I'm curious about as we introduce this forum, like what are some of the common challenges you've seen, like in your practice and in your studies? Like what are some of those most common challenges that parents have, and some of the solutions that you've seen work with those challenges?
Okay, well, that's a very big
That's
question.
a big question. Yeah.
In part because there are common challenges, right? We have a shared common humanity, and we face a lot of the sort of typical day to day challenges. What that looks like in a clinical practice is a little bit different from just a family who's having regular clips on the radar. So sort of in a more general sense, things simple, it's the simple stuff, right? Getting kids to transition from one thing to another thing, especially from doing a preferred activity to a less preferred activity. That's a big thing. Getting kids to just follow their daily routine, remember it, do it, stay on track. Those are kinds of big things. Interactions between their kids and other people, whether it's themselves and their kids, and having those interactions be peaceful and positive and accomplish what they're setting out to accomplish. Keeping the peace within a household, if there are siblings, between siblings, in school, between peers, just have social interactions that are effective, right? That kind of leave both people feeling neutral and at best positive. Most of our human interactions leave us kind of more in the neutral zone. And so just being able to kind of get through each day in a sort of net neutral, leaning to the positive side of things is really kind of what most parents are finding. And whether that shows up as, being able to get your kids to put their shoes on the way out the door, or whether to eat enough for dinner, or go to sleep when they're tired rather than fighting it and staying up and getting really grouchy and having an argument. Those are all super common. And I will say, to your point, a lot of the days of parenting really do look like surviving.
Oh.
And when we're practicing good parenting practices, the sum total is really where the thriving happens. So it's not that we should walk away from each day saying, our family is thriving today. If we're surviving today, and then at the end of the year, or when you send your kids, off to college, for example, if that's their path, that's when, you can kind of look back and think about things being thriving.
Yeah, we did an okay job. They made it to college. So
Yeah.
I guess I'll be a little more specific. You've developed, I would like, and this is not, obviously I want to shout out all your stuff. So let's talk about resources that you've developed, right? Because I want my audience from Speedster Squad and your audience on your YouTube channel to be aware of those. I think that's an important place to start. So obviously you have your books, you have your short videos that you do on your YouTube channel, which I could not highly recommend enough. Anybody that watches our YouTube, go to Dr. D's. And then you also develop your program that's all about raising resilient kids. And you speak to kind of what prompted you to start with the books, right? With those books about feelings and how to manage these strong feelings that maybe a child is unaware of.
Sure.
Or have never, came across before. And then also talk a little bit about the program and the goal behind those resources that you developed, if you don't mind.
I'd be glad to. So the real origin story of the books is I had been wanting to write children's books for a long time. And the motivation for that is there is a lot of material in the mainstream children's literature these days that validates emotion. There is not a lot of good mainstream children's literature that tells kids what to do in response to these emotions. So I have kids in my practice on a regular basis coming in with problems related to anxiety, problems related to low mood and sadness, problems related to anger. And I am not only validating those experiences exactly as you just did, as totally typical and part of our human makeup, but also we can do in response. We can't banish anger. We can't never feel sad. We certainly need anxiety. It's our body's alarm that keeps us alive in moments of danger. But there are moments when we experience all of these emotions in a way that is elevated and make us feel kind of out of control. So the aim of the book is to tell kids what they can do in response to these emotions to feel more in control. It's not about not feeling angry. It's about not having anger rule you. Right. And so that's where the books came from. The actual original one that was published is Right Now I'm Fine. That was an immediate reaction to the early pandemic and just giving people some coping skills in the face of a crisis. But because as humans, we have crises on a daily basis, from big international crises to little personal crises in our lives, it applies in an ongoing way. And so we've got that one. We've got Right Now I'm Brave and Right Now I'm Kind to help with just some strategies of, I want to be a kind kid, but what does that mean? How do I translate that idea of being kind into actual actions? And so that's where the books came from, is just giving kids tools for how to handle these certain situations that they might have validated by other adults or other books, but not actually taught. Now, what do I do? Now that I feel okay now that I know it's normal to be anxious sometimes, now what can I do in this moment to handle it? So that's where the books came from.
And one thing I like about your books, not to cut you off, because
please
talk as much. My questions are gauged to make you talk as much as possible, because they don't need to hear from me. But like, we've read all the books, the Loop family. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of Dr. D. But what I love about it, it's validating that, one, these emotions are okay. And everybody feels angry sometimes, and sad sometimes, and anxious sometimes. But you're actually providing tools within the books, right? Let's talk about right now. I feel angry, or everybody feels angry sometimes. Yeah. Sorry if I butchered the title there, Dr. D.
No problem.
But like, I like the fact that, okay, your volcano's about, how can we prevent you from getting to this place where your volcano's exploded, right? What can we do? Is it stepping away from the situation? Is it taking, and like, we've implemented those things in our family. And I can't say that it's because we have our son, our 8-year-old, that struggles with dealing with his emotions, and that's what first drew us to your book. So thank you for doing it. But it's helped, right? Like you said, it's not going to make anything perfect, but like, when we see him getting to this place where he's really getting upset or emotional or angry about something, we can remind him of one of the tools that he can use to prevent it going from a small problem to like a catastrophic explosion, like a So yeah, it's really helpful. We love the books. Everybody go read them, please.
Thank you. I agree. Yeah, that's the point, right? So if you've got a kid who tends to be aggressive with their sibling, for example, first strategy, clasp your hands behind your back and walk 10 steps away. That's going to prevent that physical altercation from happening, because you simply, when your hands are clasped and you're 10 feet away from the person that just elicited your anger because they wanted Uno, that is going to prevent you from punching them.
Yeah.
The anger and the situation, the escalation, that's going to make that anger worse. So just stepping a few feet away and having your hands clasped is going to prevent that physical thing from getting worse and the problem from getting bigger. That is a step to helping control anger. You might still be furious that you lost at Uno. You might even think that your brother cheated and that is making you more angry. But if you don't end up in a physical fight, you're better off, right? Yeah. So part of this is also perspective and being able to solve even sometimes for part of the problem, right? And so that's really the goal of the books. And I'm so delighted to hear that you're using them exactly as they were intended. So that's really cool to hear. So then, from this, and a little bit in response to the pandemic, I really was thinking about what some of the characteristics that were helping specifically kids, teenagers, and children be able to weather a difficult situation and come out on the other side doing pretty okay. And got really interested in the role of resilience, because resilience is both an inborn characteristic that we carry, and also it's made up of a series of learned skills that we can actually increase our resilience by learning to do certain things. And so that's where I worked on developing Be Amazing, Raising Resilient Children, because my goal was really to be able to empower parents with what to do when things get tough. The Surgeon General is saying parents are stressed. And if you read the manifesto that he put out several weeks ago, it's really explaining that we're living in a tough, I'm sure every generation says this, but we're living in a tough time with its own series of challenges that we face. And parents don't always know what to do in those moments. But unlike maybe some previous generations, we're thinking about parenting differently, right? It used to be like a kind of much more hands-off process, and now we're much more actively involved in helping kids in these difficult moments. And so parents want to know what to do, but they don't always know what to do. And so being able to teach families what they can do to help children be more resilient is what program is about. And the reason why I chose to do a direct delivery to parents rather than just providing these skills to the kids is because if parents know what to do, if parents know what to say, if parents understand the underlying concepts, they can both practice them themselves and model good resilient coping, which goes very far with kids. Kids see what parents do and they take a lot of that in. It's one of our top ways of learning. And then also know how to respond to their kids in those moments. Then the whole family is developing resilience. And so not just the child benefiting, but everyone as a family benefits. And so that was the goal of creating the Amazing Raising Resilient Children. And the parenting videos have just been an attempt to kind of share, like you said earlier, share some tidbits of knowledge that we have, that we know works, that we research backs up and says is helpful, because there's just so much information out there that isn't based on the evidence, that I just want to kind of provide that alternative voice of what the evidence does tell us and how we can use that in our daily lives.
Yeah, I love it. I got two quick things, one on each, but on the Be Amazing side, that really makes it makes sense that the deliverable is to parents, right? Because I know like my boys, both of my boys, especially my 8-year-old, like he watches me. Like I feel like he's studying me. Like he's even told me like, Dad, I want to be just like you one day. Like I'm going to be in sales. Like I'm going to be a hard worker. They want to be. I can't say as much for my 2-year-old. You've got some youngsters too, right?
Yeah.
But my 8-year-old, I could definitely see that like I'm his role model. Like I'm his guide to what he wants to be like when he gets older. So that's why I love what you said about we're modeling it to the parents, because if we can model it, then they're going to start doing the same thing. Because I know from my 8-year-old, I'm his role model. Like he wants to be like his dad. So what I'm doing, and I'm not perfect at it, is like modeling things that are good, not things that are gonna hurt him when he gets to be an adult or a young adult or anything like that. So I love that piece. And then with the videos, I love your videos. I love that they're short. They give like these quick tips and tricks to help with specific situations. And I think the goal for this podcast for me personally is not to get a million listens or anything like that, but it's to like shine more light on that information, just because it's helped us so much in our family, because we watch almost all the videos, right? So, another shout out, if you're on YouTube, you watch Speedster Squad, definitely go check out Dr. D's YouTube page. She's got some really good tips and tricks. They're only about a minute long, maybe like 2 minutes. Give you the situation and even give you some of the things that you could do in those situations to get out of that situation. But yeah, I love the heart behind it. That's why I wanted to do whatever I could to help you and your platform get out there more, because I'm like your perfect clientele. I'm like the struggling father who's just trying to get through these day-to-day situations without completely screwing my kid up.
Well, let's be honest. I am sure you're succeeding at this, Jake. And let's be honest, parenting is hard. Full stop. Parenting is hard. If we're going to really take an active role in investing in our kids and trying to be as helpful as possible, trying to set them up for all the successes they can have, trying to provide them with a happy, healthy life, we've got our work cut out for us. So for me, anything that I can do to help alleviate some of the stress or strain, for those kind of head scratch moments, help parents know what they can do and what is helpful and what the research shows helps. Again, not 100% of the time, but when we're thinking about what research tells us, this is what's shown to be more effective than chance, right? And so the way my brain thinks, I'd rather start with the thing that's more effective than chance. And then if that doesn't work, kind of roll the dice a little bit more. And so that's the idea, is to be able to provide parents and families with information that's going to make this job of parenting a little bit easier and, dare I say, a little bit more fun.
I love that. And that's really the whole idea behind this podcast, right? It's, can we put some resources out there to people and parents that are where I am and where you are sometimes, I'm sure. Because even though you're the professional, you're also a person. That's what I love about you. We're all struggling, right? So if we could just get some good things out into the world to help parents maybe struggle, like just I'm doing this little tiny thing a little bit less. I know as a dad and my wife, that's what we're looking for, right? Is to just be a little bit better. I guess I'll end it with this, and I'll say, so moving forward with the podcast, this is our intro, kind of getting to know the idea behind this, why we're doing it, what's driving this passion. But in the future, we will be putting, things out there, trying to get topics from people. That way we can answer them in shorter versions of this podcast. So that's what we're leading to. But since I don't have that today, Dr. D, is there something, I know it's holiday season. I know it's kind of get back to school season. We're about 8, 9, I guess we're through the first 9 weeks. Is there anything, a last tip, trick that you would want to share on this forum that's maybe top of mind for you right now? I know that's kind of broad, but I'll throw it out there to you.
Well, Halloween's around the corner. I'm not sure if we're going to get this out by Halloween. Are we going to, Jake?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I'll try my best.
Hold your feet to the fire. But I've been thinking about Halloween, and I'm gonna make a post on this. But the one thing that I've been thinking about in terms of Halloween is that this can be a really, really fun holiday for families. And I know a lot of parents, at the end of the night, throw their hands up and go, this is the last Halloween we're celebrating. And then, of course, they forget by next year and they celebrate it again. But part of that is because we as parents have certain expectations and goals and things that, we want to get out of a certain situation. And to maximize everyone's benefit, sometimes we need to think about what are our needs and what's going to be best for our kids. So if you're the kind of person who wants to try to make it to the last house, or, let your kids go trick-or-treating for that minute, but you have the kind of kids who need to have some time to transition down from a big night like that, you really want to be thinking about that, because if you push it to the last minute and then the plan is to get home, out of costumes, wash up and get ready for bed, that might not actually provide you with the best end of Halloween. Then if you have the kind of kids who need more time for transitions, even if their friends hit a few more houses, I promise you, your family will do better with cutting it a little short and having time to step your way down. So come home and play a candy sorting game, or do a 2-song stay in costume dance party in the living room before you then transition to washing off any of the Halloween makeup or whatever and reading a couple of, scary stories or something before bed, or spooky, fun, silly book before bed. And so that you actually have that time to step it down, so it doesn't feel like hi, and then get to bed. And so that's sort of my tip for the day, is that and it's true for any big events, whether it's Halloween or Thanksgiving or holidays, if you're doing something great, some kids do a quick transition. They stay out till the last minute, they come home, no fighting you on teeth, and they're in bed sleeping, before you've pretty much gotten your shoes off. And lots of kids don't do it that way. So think about your kids, think about your family, and sometimes maximizing the fun means leaving more time for a step down transition and have that go more smoothly. And I promise you, the parents will have more fun as a result, because the few houses you miss, you'll gain back in having a peaceful end of the night and having everyone go to bed with smiles on their faces. So try it.
Yeah, that's a great tip, because every family is different, right? I know from my experience with Halloween, my kids they're going to be wound up. So maybe for my tip to myself is like maybe not 100 candies, maybe like 45.
Yeah. And then give some time to do fun things, so it doesn't feel like running around with friends and eating sugar to brushing teeth and going to sleep, right? Which generally feels much more disappointing. Like find that middle thing in between that kind of makes it feel like more of a slower, more gradual slope rather than a sharp cliff.
Kind of like a
And
bridge.
then,
Like a bridge
exactly.
from the trick-or-treating, candy, sugar rush. Because your boy eats candy too for Halloween. So we all sugar rush, right? And then like a bridge, maybe it's a game. What's your song of choice? Is it Monster Mash for dance parties?
Monster Mash is great, but I gotta say our house is big into Taylor Swift.
Really?
Proudly gonna do a lot of Taylor Swift dancing.
Nice. Hey, do you know she's in New Orleans?
She's in New Orleans.
Eras tour is coming to New Orleans. Like it's a big thing. She's doing a three nights in a row at the arena in New Orleans.
Wow, that'll be a hoot. That'll be really fun.
I don't think I'm going, but Dr. D, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I'm excited about this. I'm super pumped.
Yeah.
Hopefully this is something that catches on and we keep doing it and we can put your message out there to the masses. So thank you, doctor. Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate y'all setting this up and we can stop recording.
Let's see if we can help parents solve the parenting puzzle together.
All right, my friend.
But either way, it's fun to do it. So I'm glad we got to do it. Try it, figure it out, and just keep me posted and we'll schedule the next one when it works.
That'll work, my friend. I'm glad you guys are safe.
All right, great. Thank you. Have a great Halloween.
Good seeing you. Bye.
Take care. Good to see you.